Though their time in the spotlight has come and gone again, only very, very rapidly this time, the starters of the Sinnoh region remain some of the most popular throughout the franchise. I mean, aside from the original 3, Piplup is like the one starter that still gets consistently pushed in merchandise and promotional material. I mean, it's everywhere, and it's not hard to see why. I mean, look at it. I want you to look at it. This is my little Piplup pile. It's definitely my favorite starter overall. Like, I do also love Score Bunny tremendously, but then it evolves. And again, Piplup's great all the way through. And in this video, we are going to go over the lore and origins of Sinnoh's starter Pokemon. What are they based on? Why are they named that? What's with the look? What inspired them? And we'll start by explaining the lorigins of the best one. What's up? What's up with its name? Well, first off, a pip in the context of animals describes the initial phase of hatching where a bird first begins to break through the egg shell. Basically, this is an egg, this is a chick, and the adorable stage in the middle, well, that's a pip. Though if they wanted to better display this through the Pokemon's design, they should have given it an eggshell on its head or something like that, but I get that that's kind of generic now. So instead, maybe pip is just the noise its feet make as it runs around. Cartoony, cute animals are always given fun little sound effects when they walk. And the Pokemon anime is no stranger to this. For an animal that is as famous for its awkward waddle, it's just too good to give Piplup little pips as it walks too. Which brings us right back to Piplup's popularity. Penguins, in general, are one of the fan favorites of the animal kingdom. They pull off the klutzy and cute vibe incredibly well, perhaps better than any other animal in the animal kingdom. I mean, it's one of the few bird species that aren't able to fly. You know, the whole gimmick of birds. You'd expect them to have it, but they don't. The sweet irony. But that said, penguins have plenty of other cool features that set them apart from other birds. When you think of penguins, you probably think of them alongside ice. And of course, this is due to them often being depicted in wintry settings. They're like the one thing that makes traveling to Antarctica worth it, and even that's still debatable. But still, they're the most iconic winter animal besides maybe polar bears. So why isn't Piplup, or at least its evolutions, ice type at all? Well, because it comes down to a misinterpretation of penguin habitat in general. It's true that some species call the snowy continent home, but the collective range of all 18 species of penguin spans well into the southern hemisphere, from southern Africa to New Zealand and even Australia. You know, the place famous for its blistering heats and wildfires. It's actually believed that penguins originated from the shores of New Zealand, meaning they came from the warmer climates and moved south over time. South through the water. Unlike ice, a love and mastery over water is what all penguins have in common. Every species of penguin is exceptional at swimming, and they better be, as it's the reason they can't fly in the first place. You see, there's not exactly a lot of opportunity for terrestrial meals when you live in the Antarctic wasteland or tiny rocky islands and cliffside shores throughout most parts of the southern hemisphere. So, through the real-life kind of evolution, not the Pokemon one, they've transformed their wings into makeshift flippers. Long gone are the days of flight feathers, making way for the smaller and hydrophobic ones of today. A bird who can swim? Who'd ever heard of such a thing? Okay, yeah, it's not that unique. Heck, most aquatic birds can do both, so it seems kinda like a downgrade if you ask me. Well, in some ways, yes. But just like all other things in nature, it's a game of give and take. For instance, frigate birds can keep flight for days at a time, but they can't even touch water due to its lack of hydrophobic feathers. Cormorants, while able to both fly and swim, aren't breaking any records in either department. So with this in mind, it's no surprise to learn that penguins are undisputedly the kings of the sea. For birds, anyway. The main reason they can't fly in the first place is because of their wing shape. Instead of the lightweight bones possessed by finches and parrots and such, penguins basically have what would be nature's equivalent to anchor arms. With anchor arms! Look at how dense these are in comparison. They can also rotate the appendages at a much wider range of motion than flying birds, and both of these facts together mimic the concept of boat propellers, allowing them to push against the water and traverse the seas efficiently. So of course, penguins hold many records of the sea as well. The Gen 2 penguin is the fastest swimmer of the avian world, clocking in at 22 miles an hour. Fjordland penguins spend most of their time in Antarctica, but swim over 1,000 miles to their breeding grounds in New Zealand. And emperor penguins can both dive the deepest of any bird and spend the longest time underwater, up to 27 minutes without air. So clearly, a penguin starter Pokemon? Yeah, it's got to be water type. And I guess it was kind of obvious. But what's also obvious is Piplup being based on the chick of an emperor penguin, the most recognizable of all penguin species. They look pretty much identical, though the Pokemon is a lot more blue because most Pokemon starters are just generic animal, but then the color of the typing. But that said, Piplup actually does have a good reason to be blue besides that. It's true that the emperor penguin chick drives Piplup's design, but it's not the only penguin that does. The little blue penguin, as the name implies, is a little blue penguin. Basically an exact match to Piplup, besides the white buttons and crown pattern between its eyes. We'll get to the circles later, but the crown comes from names of royalty given to various penguin species. The emperor penguin, king penguin, royal penguin. Piplup is just a baby though, so it's not quite ready for a real crown, so it styles itself one after the older members of its group. And by the way, not only does the color match from the little blue penguin, but so does the size. It is the smallest species of penguin in the world. Truly a no-brainer to go with this one for the baby. So now let's evolve it into Prinplup. It's evolved from a hatchling into a prince proper now, as the crown between its eyes returns and begins to take physical form with the yellow arches on its forehead. Yet it still has far too little experience to gain the proper title of emperor, so the awkward plip-plop-plop of its feet is still relevant to its name. Also, it's sort of like the sound a penguin makes when it drips into the water. Plop! While the same color as Piplup, the little blue and emperor penguin chick no longer inspire its design directly. Instead, it adopts various features from the crested species, with the Fjordland penguin being especially close. Both share these yellow eyebrow crown adornments, which on their own are enough to form a connection. But the similarities don't stop there. Almost every penguin species displays social traits. Revisiting emperor penguins, even though these animals are over 4 feet tall and weigh 90 pounds, they choose to group into massive colonies, some of which reach tens of thousands of members. That said, Fjordland penguins are an exception. They are one of the few that don't mimic this behavior, choosing instead to live more solitary lives away from others of its kind until breeding season. And wouldn't you know it, Prinplup's Pokedex entries describe the same thing. It lives alone, away from others. Apparently, every one of them believes it is the most important. That last part's definitely important too. The narcissistic behavior of Prinplup is common in depictions of princes throughout fiction and non-fiction. These princes haven't yet gained power and don't understand the responsibility it comes with. The title is more so a privilege, seeing themselves as important in the most spoiled way possible. Angsty middle stages in starters isn't exactly uncommon either, but this is like the best display of teen angst you can get. Luckily, those bratty tendencies dissipate upon evolving into Empoleon, the fully grown version of an emperor penguin. The crown between the eyes has now become a 3-tipped trident crown. The 3 horns that extend from its beak attest to its power. The leader has the biggest horns. Though it no longer being a narcissist does not mean it doesn't hold a high regard for honor. If anyone were to hurt its pride, it would slash them with wings that can cleave through an ice flow. That's where the steel typing comes from, by the way. Not only are its wings as sharp as blades, but notice the sharp bit on its belly. When it slides around the way penguins do, it also breaks all of the ice in its path like the steel bow of an icebreaker ship. Massive ships that pulverize ice sheets to move through them. It's one of the only easy ways to ship merchandise through the Arctic Ocean. For now anyway, it's getting easier and easier by the year. But what exactly is the second part of its name supposed to represent? Well, just like how Genghis Khan takes after Genghis Khan, Empoleon is inspired by Napoleon Bonaparte, the 19th century French emperor best known for conquering over 500,000 square miles in the European continent. And it's not like the name is a coincidence. No, its Japanese name is Emparte, or Empert. It's basically the same thing. Emperor Bonaparte. It's just using Bonaparte instead of Napoleon. And look at Napoleon. Though not the most common depiction, paintings showing him in emperor royal robes and crowns is common enough to be the driver behind the crown design. Its unusual thorny appearance is like why Empoleon's takes after a trident shape as well. Well, on top of it being the weapon of choice for King Neptune and or Poseidon, mythical king of the ocean, that is. But let's be honest, this is the Napoleon you're probably familiar with. Remember those buttons on Piplup's belly? Those come from Napoleon's famous pennycoat, a type of overcoat that buttons at the chest and tails out the back. And see, Piplup has it too, and it's so weird because the tail sticks out of it even though this part's coming from like the back of the chest, and it's biologically, how does this even? Well, the pennycoats of course also leave the wearer's stomach exposed, perhaps to show even more buttons and to have a color dynamic fashion-ness, so just like Prinplup really now. And as the Pokemon evolves, the elegance and maturity of the outfit evolves too. Hey, give it more buttons. No, more buttons. I said more buttons! That works. Like and subscribe. Penguins are one of nature's best dressed animals after all. While they don't exactly take the old Napoleon look, comparing their feathers to a tuxedo is incredibly common. All the way to the point where the reverse is true as well. Penguin suit is not an unusual nickname for tuxedos after all, especially decades ago. And who dresses better and more fancy than the highest of royals, Emperors. So the connection works well. But as for why it's in Sinnoh now though, well, to be honest, Pokemon wasn't super concerned about basing every single Pokemon in a region on something important to that region's real-world counterpart. That wasn't really a solid thing until Gen 6. But hey, Sinnoh, thus Hokkaido, are both cold. In penguins, ice? Yeah. Now it's Turtwig time. And you know what Turtwig says? Why not check out today's sponsor? Pokemon Center Online has so many cool things that are only available all the way over there, like a Trubbish bag, a Sinistea teacup, Knackley salt shaker, Marini scalp massager, Fuecoco AirPods case, Gulpin holds your paper clips, Toucannon's face is a pencil bag, a sandwich press to make your sandwiches look like a well-bred dog, but it's all the way over there and I'm right here, and I just remembered Zen Market is today's sponsor. Zen Market is a Japanese proxy shopping service with access to more than 10,000 online stores, which means through them you now have access to all of those amazing bits of Japan-only goods and merchandise. Look at how much fun I'm having with these things I'm not supposed to have because of my geographic location. Browsing Zen Market is super easy, but you can even just copy and paste Japan-only product URLs directly into their product search bar, and there it is. Now you can buy it through them. They buy it and have it shipped to their warehouse, where they then pack up everything you ordered nicely and ship it to you internationally. It's glorious, and to learn more, check them out at the link below, and make sure you sign up with the code Lockstin to get 1,000 Zen points. Finally, a Tinkaton paperweight, and I love the look of this pillow, but I think all these Japan-only Pokemon games are where it's at. It's a great way to learn Japanese too. Now then, Turtwig. Now that's a Pokemon that makes perfect sense as the grass starter in a Japanese region. It's also the first time an animal has been repeated as a starter, joining Squirtle as our second turtle. Or is it a tortoise? Its name would imply turtle, as it's a turtle twig, but being a land-based animal, a tortoise seems like a better fit. After all, its final evolution takes part of its name from tortoise, though so does Blastoise. And that is clearly a turtle in every way except for its shapy feet. The whole naming scheme really isn't all that concrete. But hey, it should definitely be noted that there being a distinction at all between the two is irrelevant, because not all languages differentiate them. They're just the same thing. And also, scientifically speaking, all tortoises are turtles. I will repeat that. Breaking news! A tortoise is a turtle. But not all turtles are tortoises. Basically, a tortoise is a turtle that prefers the land and can't really swim, so don't do this. Now, take a gander at the Chinese box turtle, which, despite its name, is also native to Hokkaido. So, Sinnoh. Just like the little blue penguin, we have an almost exact color match to Turtwig, especially the hatchling colors, who get big yellow cheeks as they age, making Turtwig definitely a turtle, at least for now. And actually, funnily enough, at one point in time, box turtles were considered tortoises due to their land-dwelling tendencies, but as science advanced and genetic testing revealed things about them, they are indeed true turtles. Do you see why there isn't really a distinction in a lot of languages? As for the plant aspect of its design, a two-leafed sapling sits on its head in a clump of soil, the classic design of saplings across all kinds of media, including real life, but Animal Crossings are definitely the cutest. And this isn't the only plant-based alternative aspect to its design. According to the Pokédex, photosynthesis occurs across its body under the sun. The shell on its back is actually hardened soil, so its shell is not made of scutes as it is with normal turtles, but rather a silt pile from which the twin bushes on Grotle's back eventually sprout upon evolution. Unlike Piplup, who sorta broke the portmanteau rule, Grotle takes it to the next level. Again, the second half of the name comes from turtle, but the grow part can be tons of words related to planting. Grow, grove, grotto, ground, grotesque, anything really. Maybe Game Freak did this on purpose, or maybe it's a coincidence, but none of those words can be proven irrelevant. I mean, look at this thing. Grotesque. Its soil shell has been tilled over to make way for new, larger plants. Its back is pretty much flatter now, which along with the addition of a new tail makes Grotle akin to an alligator snapping turtle, but with tortoise feet, and perhaps a touch of young Stegosaurus, like Spike from The Land Before Time. I mean, look, if we just take the bushes on Grotle's back and swap them out for the plates you see on the backs of Stegosauruses, bam, it works. It's a Stegosaurus tortoise. There's a Pokemon for you. Stegostortoise. Also, consider that all sorts of aquatic plants like algae grow on the backs of slower moving turtles, just like the alligator snapper actually. And it helps them out because it keeps the body camouflaged within the lake's surroundings, allowing it to trick fish into swimming right into its mouth. Pokédex, it lives lives along water in forests, the one place you're likely to see snapping turtles when they aren't actively hiding in the water. In the daytime, it leaves the forest to sunbathe its treed shell.
Wait, those aren't trees, those are bushes.
Oh, but you see, just like the turtle-tortoise thing, there's not much of a difference beyond colloquialism. A tree is just a tall bush, and likewise, a bush is just a short tree. You can get more specific about, like, where the branches start coming from, like the base versus a little ways up the plant, but that really also just plays into its height again.
This is stupid.
It is. Welcome to Semantics, and also, welcome the Maleonia to this video! It's like a big ol' extinct tortoise with spikes and stuff, especially on the sides and back of its head, which brings us right into Torterra, whose rocks here are also very spiky and to the side, like a stegosaur, or even like an ankylosaur if its back bumps and ridges were even bigger. I bring it up because ankylosaurs do have the longer tails and also the face that looks kind of like this. Really, if you just mix all three of these extinct dudes and top it with a Japanese bonsai garden, you get Torterra pretty perfectly. Plus, bonsai are typically grown in decorative clay pots, and that's definitely what the rim around Torterra's shell reminds me of. But now, I'm gonna tell you something deep and controversial. Torterra's back is not bonsai. It's Peizheng, a Chinese art that Japan later adopted and adapted into bonsai. But the key difference is that Peizheng often incorporates mosses, stones, or chunks of wood designed to look like mountains and stones, and seeks to create entire miniature landscapes with various colors and layers of ground, rather than just miniature trees. And that is exactly what Torterra's got. I mean, look at all these examples. You just put Torterra next to them and it fit right in. Though I suppose saying bonsai isn't wrong, because the terms are almost interchangeable. Almost. But now consider the classic world turtle, a Hindi, Chinese, and Native American belief that the world resides on the back of a massive turtle and is a turtle with terrain all over its back. A terrain tortoise even. Torterra. It's the name. Tortoise with terrain. In short, the story goes, the whole world was once an ocean, and then the animals got tired of swimming, so they piled dirt on top of a turtle until they made the terrain of the continents. Yeah. Pokédex. Ancient people imagined that beneath the ground, a gigantic Torterra dwelled. Clearly, that is a reference to the myth. And I also like the Dex entry. Some Pokemon are born on a Torterra's back and spend their entire life there. Probably another Gen 4 Pokemon, Wormadam, since they are based on the female bagworm, which upon building their home in a tree, rarely if ever move. And I just love the idea of like a Torterra and a Wormadam becoming best friends.
And then someone comes along and catches Torterra, leaving the Wormadam behind, because who wants that?
So, we have a real-life blue penguin and green turtle. So can there really be an orangey-red monkey? Why, yes, technically. The golden snub-nosed monkey comes to mind. But as Chimchar's name implies, we're dealing with a charred chimp, a primate, an ape. And because this guy has a tail, it can't really be what we're looking for just yet. Plus, they always look sad for some reason. Maybe because they don't have a Pokemon really based on them yet, or maybe that just hurts. The orangutan is another option, and it does fill an ape role, but come on, he doesn't really look that similar at all. No, unfortunately, this one really is just a red ape. That said, in a more conceptual matter, there is a fire monkey of sorts, or at least a heat-associated one, and it greatly fits the bill. Chimchar is the perfect representation of a Japanese macaque. Not only is it Japan's only primate species, but they're also only found in the upper areas in and near Hokkaido. Yep, the macaques are the snow monkeys found in the mountain onsens. Heck, the little flame hair on top of Chimchar's head could be seen as a pile of snow, though that is admittedly a reach. But I do love these iconic monkeys, spending all of their winter days chilling in hot springs. Ah, the life. Now take a gander at Chimchar's butt. While big red heart-shaped butts are more so associated with baboons, macaques are considered extremely closely related to them, which is why when not in their winter coats, you can see the bright red butts on macaques, just to a lesser extreme. In fact, all baboons, mandrills, macaques, and some chimpanzees have this fancy butt feature. So really, it's totally fine that Chimchar goes from a chimp with macaque elements to a macaque with mandrill elements once it evolves. I mean, look at the colors on Monferno's face. That is mandrill face parts. And it has a proper baboon tail, hence the name mixing Inferno with monkey. Ugh, now is probably a good time to point out something I do not really like about these two. So like, Chimchar's whole deal is that it's setting its farts on fire. It's like the flame of a gas stove or under a gas-powered water heater. According to the Pokédex, the gas made in its belly burns from its rear end. It is a tailless chimp after all, yet the fire is from its butt. I suppose primates of all sorts sorts are kind of notorious for throwing their own poop as a weapon, and likewise, that's essentially what Chimchar does with its butt fire. But now, notice when it evolves into Monferno. It is no longer tailless, it has a tail, and there's even fire coming out of the tip of the tail rather than the butt. So, well, now look at where the tail meets the body. Yes, there's the red spot again, but the heart shape on Chimchar's butt is gone. Now it's just a red circle that is completely around the tail. Even the most extreme examples of baboon butts don't go completely around the tail unless something terrible is going on. And since Chimchar used to burn up its farts, does the flame being on the tip of the tail here mean it's still burning its farts, but way out here? Because the tail isn't actually a tail, but rather it's its intestines popped out from its butt upon evolution, and the red spot is going completely around the base of the tail because the tail is inside the butt. I do not like these implications.
You know, it's actually very possible to push too hard while pooping and cause your intestines to fall out a bit.
Can we stop talking about this, please? Let's get back to the sad-looking snub-nosed monkey from before.
Oh, it's so cute.
And I guess it could have been a bit of an inspiration too, as its red coloring with the pale belly definitely fits Monferno. But the other big new aspect of the Mon is its new fighting typing, which comes from
猴拳
otherwise known as monkey-style kung fu. It's a martial arts style incorporating movements and techniques inspired by primates. The fighting style gets its origins from China and involves erratic and unpredictable movements meant to catch your competitor off guard. As stated in the Pokédex, it uses ceilings and walls to launch aerial attacks. Its fiery tail is but one of its weapons. That's definitely wild behavior. No wonder it became fighting type, and the same holds true when it evolves into Infernape. It uses a special kind of martial arts involving all of its limbs. Its fire never goes out. Though, martial arts aren't the only thing going on here. Just like with Torterra, it too incorporates Hindi influence into its design. The Ramayana is a classic Hindi epic from around the 7th century BC, and it features Hanuman, one of the most famous gods in all of Hinduism. He is a Vanara, which, depending on the folklore, is a type of sacred ape or half-monkey, half-human hybrid. But one thing that makes Hanuman special is his association with fire. Not only was he once merely a monkey who mistook the fiery sun for a fruit, a common mistake I know, but later the god Agni blessed Hanuman with protection from fire, meaning fire cannot hurt him. This meant that later, when he was being punished in the typical way you punish monkeys, lighting the ends of their tails on fire, he'd be fine. Look at that Monferno-looking guy. Fire tail! He'd later use his fire immunity for arson, but he's not the only Vanara referenced by Infernape, because there's, of course, the main character from the story with the most media adaptations and influence of any in the world. The Monkey King, Sun Wukong from Journey to the West. While theorized to have been directly inspired by Hanuman, Sun is kinda like Qing Dynasty China's Superman or Sun Goku. Actually, yeah, Goku is very much based on Sun Wukong too, with the tail and the monkey and the staff and the cloud and the journey and the dragon and the just ridiculous number of demigod tier superpowers and feats. But at the core of Wukong's abilities, of course, is his excellent use of monkey-style martial arts. He is a fighter through and through, no matter which MOBA he's in, with many ornate designs all around him too, much like the fire-fighting type Infernape's golden ornaments seen just all over him. Like seriously, Infernape is just a staff away from being just a fiery Sun Wukong. And it wouldn't even be the last time Pokemon bases a starter on a character from Journey to the West. In the very next gen, they did the same thing with Embor, who is partially based on Zhubaji, a pig demon and one of Sun Wukong's friends, hence the same like colors and golden swirls and type and all that. Fun! So now, as a set of 3, they're kinda weird. We got 2 Hindu/Chinese Pokemon with Japanese flair, and a penguin who is a French emperor. Like what? Now there is an idea that often pops up in the fandom that all the starter Pokemon trios have themes, and in the later gens that's absolutely true. Gen 6 onwards, there's no question about it. You've got your big 3 JRPG classes, Fighter, Paladin, Thief, Rogue, and a Mage, like easy, and then the rest of them from that point on also, plenty fine. But back up all the way to Gen 1 and 2, and they definitely were not thinking about that. Like you can say, oh, they're what the 5-year-old pretends their amphibious pet is. And thus, then, Gen 4 is kind of in that awkward middle phase. Same with the whole every Pokemon fits the region they are in kind of thing. Like, you do absolutely start noticing that plenty of the Pokemon in Gen 4 fit Sinnoh, which is based on Hokkaido, like, perfectly, but it is definitely not all of them, like it is these days. So when I hear the common idea that the theme of these starters is mythology, absolutely, I see it, but I am skeptical. Especially when one of them is based on Napoleon Bonaparte a very real man? But Poseidon! Yeah, sure, but the trident is like the only thing similar there. Plus, mythology is so broad. I mean, look, you can say Gen 5 is mythology too. We already talked about Embor being Jubaji, and now Superior is like Ouroboros, the big green snake that sometimes accompanies the world turtle. And Samurott? You know how many mythical samurais there are? A lot. And oddly, just like with Bonaparte, they were real samurai that got heavily mythologized over time. Look, I'll even do Gen 9. Skeledurge is the Cocoyona from Iberian myth crossed with the mythical Alebrije from Mexico. Florigato is Puss in Boots, and then there's Mayan jester gods. And Quaquaval is pushing a woke agenda. These are all myths. I'm just being silly now. As a trio, they fit Sinnoh enough. It's cold, it's got pretty gardens, and monkeys who like the heat. Both Sun Wukong and Napoleon, destroyer of skeletons, are very prominent in global history. And then, I suppose, the world turtle is too, just to a lesser extent. Perhaps it is even symbolic of the world in this case. But what are your thoughts on them? Think they are one of the better or lesser trios? Let me know down below, and never stop using your noggin, like Game Freak did when figuring out what the Sinnoh Pokedex was going to be. Really, why would you not choose Infernape? It's like the only fire type in the region besides Rapidash. It would kind of be good to have a fire type in a region that is so full of, like, grass and ice, you know?